Welcome to part 3 of understanding WordPress initialization process. So let's discuss further. So at this point, most of the core, the plugin API, taxonomy, post types, all of them are loaded. So the WP setting starts loading the active theme by calling the register theme directory. Okay, so since we've got your most of the core, the plugin API, the taxonomy, post types, all of this already loaded. Now we're going to call whichever the active theme is by using a function called register theme directory, and it's going to call the register theme root. Okay. So these functions determine the location of and loading the active themes directory. So we're going to load the active themes directory now. And once the active themes directory has been loaded, WP settings loads all the active plugins by running for each loop. So after initializing everything, then we go ahead and run the active themes directory. We load that, and then we run a for each loop to step through each plugin found by running WP get active and valid plugins. Okay. So we'll use this for each loop, and we're going to include the required plugins for the active theme. Now this function defined in load.php looks through the WP content plugins and returns the valid plugins that it finds. So this function is basically going to find the valid plugins which are there into our plugin folder, WP content plugin, and it's going to load that. Okay. After active plugin is loaded, okay, it requires pluggable.php and pluggable-deprecated .php file. So what does pluggable.php file do? So these two files, what does this do? So pluggable.php includes useful function for working with login users, sending emails, and getting or setting users information. They are defined and required at this point so that they can be overridden by any plugins loaded through the upcoming do action plugin loaded. So you're going to be having this hook being called over here, which is going to change any user settings and everything. So if our plugins have any functionality to change or edit those functions of the sending email, getting a setting user info, all of these information, if we are trying to manipulate them or edit them using our plugin, then we are calling these plugin files over here so that they can do that, so that once this hook is called, we are getting the result, which will be modified result. Cool. Right. The pluggable deprecated.php, which is the next file right here, this file. So this file basically maintains the backward compatibility, things that are not really valid anymore and they're deprecated. So it's going to take care of that. Okay. Then WP set interval encoding function is run to set default encoding to and default encoding is UTF-8. This function is run to set the default encoding. Then a condition is checked if a constant WP cache is set to true and if the WP cache postload function exists. So if this is set and if that function exists, then it gets executed to set up any remaining caching related functionality that had to wait until more of the WordPress core was loaded. And at this point, the entire plugin API is up and running, and so the do action plugin loaded hook is fired. Okay, so this hook is fired because the entire functionality of the plugin has been loaded. To enable the plugin developers to execute any custom functionality provided in their plugins when they are loaded. Okay, so if they had included any custom functionality right here, then it will be loaded because of this hook. So if there are any edits or any tweaks that they've made in the existing functionality, then that will be executed with this hook. Cool. Right, then the below two functions are called WP functionality constraints and WP magic quotes. These two functions, what do they do? So defined in default constant.php, it sets autosave interval, empty, trash days, WP post revision constants to handle the housekeeping of your post. So let's go inside this function. So it defines this autosaves, empty trash days, all of these constants to take care of the housekeeping for your posts. Okay, WP magic quotes, what does this do? It's defined in load.php, which already been loaded. Takes all the variables from get, post, cookie, server, and sanitizes them by running strip slashes deep. So let's go into this function. It's into the load.php, as you can see here. What is it doing? It's taking these global variables and it's strip slashing deep, and it's adding magic codes to them. Remember, initially we removed the magic codes. If you remember, let's go on top. I don't know if I can find it, it's too long. Somewhere here we had removed the magic codes because we said that we're going to add them later. Let's find it. Magic codes. Yeah, I think this was the function which, yeah, here, right here. Okay, in versions.php, not in versions, sorry, in WP settings file, these were the functions called, and this was called to disable the magic codes because they're going to be added later. Okay, so this was the point we discussed. So at this point now, we're going to add these magic codes, right? We removed them there, and now we're adding them. Okay, cool. Right, and then add them to an array that gets assigned to $_request. So all of this, we are assigning it to our array, which will have all of the information of the get and post array merge. Okay, next, then do action hook is executed, which sanitizes the comment cookies. Yep, right here. Fires when the common cookies are sanitized. Then it creates important objects. So these are the objects that it creates. So what are the objects? You can see these are the objects created. Yeah. Creates new WP query object and assign it to the variable $global WP query. This one. Then it creates another variable that points to the reference to that variable. So this, we assign it to this, and we assign it to WP query. Next, it creates the new WP widget factory object and assign it the object global variable. This one. So and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go into detail. It's just an explanation of all these objects defined over here, so that they can be used later. Then the so we're almost towards the end of it. So guys, so don't worry. I know it's so boring. Even I spend my entire day into this, and think about it. I'm now going ahead and you know going through making a video out of it, so that other people can benefit of it, and they don't have to go and read it the entire day, because it's really boring, trust me. But you need to go through it if you want to add more functionality to your WordPress core. If you want to develop plugins, you need to know how these things work. You need to understand the core. Okay. All right, so then the hook do action setup theme is executed to allow plugins to take actions right as the theme is getting ready to be loaded. So after all of these objects defined, then this hook is called before the theme is loaded to allow plugins to take the actions right. Okay. Then WP templating constants is executed, which creates the constant familiar to theme designers. Uh, so this is the function. Let's see what it's doing. So it's defining the template path and style sheet path directory constants. Okay, we're going to be needing them. Just remember these two constants. So template path is basically file system path to the current active template directory, and style sheet path is the path to the current active template style sheet directory. This is template directory and this is template style sheet directory. Okay, right. WP templating constant is this. So why do we need it? Okay, what happens? So it creates the constant familiar to theme designers, and it checks to see if WP default theme constant has been set. So let's go back to that function once again. We'll check if this constant has been set. If it is not set, we set it, and along with setting this constant, uh, if it's not set to the current 2012 theme, then this default theme is used for any new install of WordPress, as well as if the current theme somehow goes missing. Okay, so set this constant equal to 2017. So for example, if the user has not selected or activated any specific theme on your fresh install, is going to check whether this constant has been defined and is equal to the specific theme that user has activated. If he hasn't, then it'll be by default pointing towards a 2017 theme, and that'll be the one activated. Okay, right. Then the load default text domain function is run to ensure proper language setting is loaded. So this is to ensure proper language setting is loaded. Once default text domain has been set, default local file is determined and required. Once both of those steps are complete, WP local object is created and assigned to the global variable array global local. So all of this is happening over here. Then it checks the condition if the value of the style sheet path is different from the template path. So over here, we check if the value of the template style sheet path is different than the template path, and if functions.php already exist. If it is, then it's going to load the functions.php file of the style sheet. If it isn't, then it's going to load the functions.php from template path. So that's what it's saying over here, that if the value of style sheet path is different than the template path, if it is, then it loads the functions.php from the style sheet path first, and then it calls the functions.php in template path. It does it in that way because you want the child theme to be able to set up any custom functions before the parent can define them. And this is why parent themes should check if the function exists before executing it, just in case the child has defined a custom one. Please note that the child's functions.php file is loaded before the parents, but parents' template files are loaded before the child. Alright guys, so next, do action after theme setup hook is called for any themes or plugins that need to execute custom code when a theme is done with its setup. So this hook is called over here. Then the init method of the WP object is called to set up the current user setting, and then the hook do action init is run. Alright, over here. Then there is one more check for the multi-site, and then the do action WP loaded hook is run, which is for any theme or plugin that needs to run any code once the WordPress has fully loaded. So we are providing this hook WP loaded, so that if you have any plugins that you're developing and you want uh, that plugin to function after the WordPress has completely initialized, then you can attach your function to this hook, and then your plugin will function only after the complete WordPress has been initialized. Okay, so just to give you a small recap of everything that we discussed in the last 3 videos. So basically what's happening over here is that when somebody tries to access your WordPress website, it takes them to index.php. Here we check WP use themes, okay, which tells the WordPress to activate the load the active theme, okay, and then it includes this file WP blog header.php, and this file over here includes WP load.php, runs this function, and template loader.php. WP load.php defines apps path, which is the path till your root directory. Yeah, and then it goes ahead and tells you in case if it doesn't find any settings. After this, then you have different files being included over here, like versions.php and things like that. And then you have your template loader.php, which is in your WP include folder. Okay, right, so it's got all the yep, templates over here. So pretty much it so basically then it goes ahead and reaches the settings.php. Okay, and finally once it reaches your settings.php, I'm not going to go through each one of them as I explained earlier because it's going to take a really long time. I'm just going to jump into your settings.php, WP settings.php. Yeah, so all of these files and functions are being included. First the functions are included once the till this point. Once the functions are included and the magic quotes are disabled, then these functions are called step by step, and the plugins are included, the plugins are defined, action hooks are defined, these functions are called, these files are called. All of this happens, then we initialize different objects over here. Okay, and then we check to include the functions.php depending on if style sheet is not equal to the template path and things like that. We attach the hook and everything over here, and then finally we attach this hook for the themes or for the plugins which want to be loaded after the WordPress has been initialized. So up until this point, uh, all these files are loaded, and up until here, from this point onwards, the WordPress completely initialized. Okay, so this has been the entire process, the entire journey of the WordPress. And the best part is that all of this happens, whatever I've explained to you in the last 3 videos, which almost took us like 1 hour or hour and a half. This entire thing happens just in like couple of minutes with WordPress. That's how quick it is. Yep. Brilliant. If you have any questions, please leave the comment, and then I will try to go and answer that. Okay. Take care, guys. Bye bye.